Welcome to Further Ed with your host, David Schnurman, accomplished entrepreneur, innovator, and educator. Each week, Further Ed will offer an intimate look at trailblazing visionaries who have transformed the landscape of business and society at large. And now we introduce our guests and our host, David Schnurman.
Hi, welcome to Further Ed. I'm your host, David Schnurman. Further Ed looks at internet-based companies that have passion, drive, and energies that are changing the landscape of how we live today. We look at ed tech companies, we look at companies that are in emerging markets. Today we're lucky enough to have Jeffrey and Naveen from Lenddo, who do micro lending. This is probably a simplified way to say it, but based on your social media status and other things that they look at. So it's a whole new way of doing it. So Naveen, Jeffrey, thank you for being here, or Jeff, for being here today. Really interesting. Let's start with, when I Google your company, the first thing I saw was $8 million in funding in May 2012. So clearly, there's some bigger players out there who believe in your idea. Can we start with just sort of how you guys, who you guys are and how you met and sort of how this idea came out?
Sure. So we kind of stumbled upon this idea because we had started several internet companies. I think between us and our other co-founders, we've started about a dozen companies. And we had employees all over the world, and they would come to us and ask for loans. This made no sense to us because they're very employable, hardworking, but couldn't access credit. So as we dug into how do we solve this, we realized that it wasn't just our employees in the emerging markets, but it's in general the middle class in the emerging markets is underbanked, and that just didn't seem right. So as we were trying to figure out how to solve it, we stumbled upon microfinance.
Sure.
And that's what changed our life. When we saw that in microfinance, although traditionally targeted at the bottom of the pyramid, the social dynamics are such that everyone always repays. And our aha moment was, well, just because we should be able to do this online. Just because you have friends that are reflected in your social network doesn't mean that they're not real friends, that there's not real community there. And we know that in real communities, microfinance or social lending techniques work.
And I'll get into the site for a second, because when I first went to your site, for the first few minutes, I'm like, whoa, what is going on here? Then I started reading FAQ and started doing a little bit more research. And I was just like, oh my God, this really makes a lot of sense, not just for microfinancing, but just for sort of life in general. You are who your trusted reputation is.
Right, so lending has changed in the last 100 years. For a very long time before that, lending and financial transactions and transactions in general in society were based on trust and your community vouching.
Very long time ago.
So, well, yeah, so in the last 100 years or so, things have changed and it has become more transactional, and you really are only, to a bank, you really
What's your
only,
credit score?
Right, you're only as good as your credit score and your last few transactions, right? Whereas in these communities, and more particularly, it's based on how good your job is really, right? In the absence of any previous transaction, do you have a job? It turns out that banks don't like to bank with BPO employees and people who change their jobs pretty frequently. But it turns out that even though you're changing your job pretty frequently, your community is still the same. Your community vouches for you, and if we can create an online means for your community to say, yes, this is David, and yes, we like David, he's a creditworthy person, then David is gold for us.
Yeah, it's incredible. We were talking to senior bank executives in the emerging markets, and they said, oh, we don't want to lend to these people. They keep switching jobs to get paid more money. You're like, wait, you don't want a customer whose earning potential is growing? That makes no sense. But they lost connection with the customer once they switched jobs, where the reality is you don't lose touch with people. They're part of a community. If you understand the community and their community is vouching for them, you're able to stay in touch.
So let's just take a step back for a second to understand who you two are, because you said something really important in the beginning, is you had about 12 companies before. Were these successful failures, a little bit of everything? Just in 30 seconds, or let's just kind of give us a background of sort of who you guys are, because obviously that sort of probably helps you start the next company, and we all want to be that person, or at least I do, where I can say, this is my 12th company, and I'm going to save the world with microlending.
Well, I think I started my first company in 1995. It was an internet technology software development firm.
I graduated high school. So.
And the observation at the time was that the internet was just going to change everything. and that it was going to be so big that it would make up for all the mistakes that you inevitably make when you start a business. So we grew that business.
Hence Webvan, Pets.com.
Grew that business, eventually merged with another company, bought a third company, eventually went public. So
you're one of those guys. I know we don't have all the time in the world, and we can take this offline. But just to do that is a feat in itself. But I'll take a pause there. But just in terms of that, was there something? Do you feel like you have something innate about you that's able to sort of just roll this in, or were you sort of kind of shooting by the hip when you're doing there?
Well, I think all of us, everyone on the team likes to build things,
yeah.
And they like to have a positive impact. And a company is a mechanism to do it. Yeah. What Lenddo really is it's a community. We're building software to empower our members to prove their identity and trustworthiness. It just happens to be that there's a company as a structure to deploy the software.
That's the game that we're in, and revenue is the point system, for better or for worse, if it's a for-profit company.
Yeah, and that's what makes it sustainable.
Sure.
Right? And that's what makes it feed on itself so that it can get bigger and have a material impact.
So last question in regards to your history, Naveen, what was your favorite company that you had been involved
so
with?
my background is in computer science and in neuroscience and in computational neuroscience.
So you're really smart.
I have many degrees. I don't think that makes anybody smart. I come to Lenddo with, or what attracts me about Lenddo is two separate kind of passions. One is as a data scientist and as a person who deals with a lot of data, this is a fascinating problem. Can we use your community in an effective way to assess your creditworthiness? That's a fascinating problem for any data scientist, and that's a big attraction for me. The other one is more basic. The markets that Lenddo is addressing right now, which is the middle class and the emerging middle class in the developing world, that's where I grew up. I grew up in India in a middle class family, and the idea that I can do something to help my community, we do have some plans to move into India at some point, but in general, it was a frustration to see, even back then, that banking and personal finance was as bad as it was, and the ability to affect that and to improve that is a big step.
So, in terms of the product itself, from what I understand, I'll do my best to say it in 20 seconds. Is so somebody can apply literally, from what I understand, 10 minutes or so. Just kind of add their social networks. Add their trusted colleagues, whether it's their family members, whoever that may be, and then they add their social networks. So now you have all these different networks. Obviously, people who just join social networks, it hurts their score. And then you have your own computations while you're paying back. Generally, the loan size is 400 to 800. So to me, when we think of a loan in the U.S., obviously it's much higher dollars, but this is to get them through the next month. Or more. Yeah.
Our typical, the largest use is for education.
Works perfectly for us.
Yeah, and
this is in Colombia and the Philippines?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Healthcare is another one. Okay. Relocation and career advancement, training. Yeah. Medical is a big one. And people may say, oh, well, it's just $400. Well, that's a month's pay. Right. So that can be a year's disposable income. So it can really affect someone's life positively in these countries.
Yeah, our typical loan is the amount is about a month's pay, and the length is 6 to 12 months. So we're
Payback.
not. Yeah,
it's about 20% interest or something like that.
Yeah, that's annualized. Yeah, yes.
Yeah. Similar credit cards.
Right. So, but we're way lower than what a bank would charge, what a credit card would charge in that market.
So the first questions I had about this was, and maybe I don't know the market that well, was one, are these people really on social networks? Two, not everyone has a bank account, because in micro lending, it's sort of that area. So it seems like you're missing. So what? Is that an issue? Is that a challenge right now?
So social media use is much greater in these countries.
Okay.
In
is
the
that
Philippines,
Facebook? We're talking about?
Facebook and other social networks. We sit on top of LinkedIn, Twitter, Google, Yahoo, Microsoft Live. So the Bogota has greater use of social networks than New York City, to put it in perspective. And the Philippines which was for a long time the greatest user of Friendster, there's more use of social networks in the Philippines than Northern California.
And what about bank accounts? I guess there's a large enough market that have accounts because they all have jobs. And
exactly. So they all have jobs, and the jobs pay them in what's called a salary account. It's a regular bank account.
So is it a software algorithm that sort of goes into let's say their Facebook account, sees who their friends are, see how long their friends have been on there. So if everything looks like someone's been on there for a while, have lots of friends, lots of posts, lots going on there, that sort of gives them points?
That's an important part of it. So who?
I love it. I think it's so interesting to the modern credit score.
Yeah. See what's happening.
Credit score.
Yeah, it's incredible. What's happening is they're booting, self-booting their community in software. You when you start something up, every time someone in the community repays, they're essentially bringing up the borrowing capacity of everyone they're connected to. So what's happened now, as we've had thousands and thousands of repayments.
Are you saying through your system, or that's how microlending is in general?
Through our system,
yes. Okay.
And also in microlending, but particularly through our system. So as we get thousands and thousands of repayments, we now know, when those people vouch for others, we're like, oh well, this person's vouched for you, okay, and so the borrowing capacity is just in the countries that we operate is just going up like this, and over time. People will have access to financial services to the level that we've come accustomed to here.
From what go ahead.
And network connectivity typically has an exponential component to it. So if you have people who are connected on a network, as you increase the lines between them, the level of connectedness of that graph grows. It grows like a hockey stick. So. Even though we have, there's a few, we have about 100 and something thousand members right now. The likelihood that any average person that now joins our site in the Philippines, there's an 80% chance that somebody they know is already on Lenddo, and so we already know about them. We know, you're David, welcome. We know your friend Jeff, he's a great guy.
You know Jeff too?
Exactly. Yeah.
The institutions doing the lending, it's not you, it's local institutions that you partner with, is that correct?
So we've built the system to, the primary purpose of the system is to empower our members to prove their identity and trustworthiness. And we then connect them with financial services. Today, there's 2 financial institutions that provide loans. Okay. We happen to have set those entities up, but they're our customer. We treat them as our customer.
And is that from the $8 million in funding you received, or is there other how much?
We've raised over $10 million to date.
Okay.
But
and it's that money that's funding these microloans.
Today we a portion of it.
Okay. Yeah. Sure.
But today it's primarily we're sort of proving this out.
Sure. Of course.
But as it scales, we want to allow any capitalist in the world, if they're going to improve the lives of people in the emerging market middle class, any institution, we want to essentially give them a turnkey. Okay, where do you want to help? Do you want to help people in Brazil? Do you want to help people in Mexico? We flip a few switches and voila.
It sort of sounds like Kickstarter or one of those where somebody needs to raise money for their school, and so you can help with there. And I know in microlending that's more common where lots of people can contribute to.
Yes, but the key is that it's institutional capital.
Sure.
So we think that capital is already crowdsourced. A pension fund, that's a crowdsourced pool of capital. So to go to consumers and say, oh, you're going to pick where to put your that's a level of complexity that's unnecessary in a world where capital flows freely around the planet at the speed of light.
Sure. How big do you guys, in your planning, do you think this can be for Lenddo? How big a market or how big a company?
Our goal, Apple became the most valuable company in 37 years, so we want to do it in 31. So that's our goal.
Well, certainly everyone needs access to funding or money to one degree or another.
Yeah, I think what a lot of people don't realize or they don't see is that financial services is much bigger than media. It's much bigger than most industries. And it touches every aspect of our life. And if we can make that more efficient, you make access to education more efficient.
Yep.
You make access to healthcare more efficient. You make access to transportation more efficient. So this one industry, by making it better, you just have such a huge positive impact.
Let's talk about the algorithm that you have, and if you want to say something real fast.
Yeah, I was just going to say that if we start with a creditworthiness score, something that's community based, that is basically where your community comes and vouches and says, yes, David's a good guy, that has a lot of value in a lot of different places that aren't necessarily even financial, right? Yeah. So will a car rental company give you a better rate? Will there's a lot of people that would like to transact with you.
You knew my next question. That was a good. That was a good segue, because the question is, this algorithm seems like itself is very valuable that can apply to lots of other areas in life. So is there like some sort of side thought process, as you were just saying, that okay, well in the U.S. it's not an emerging market. If somebody has a creditworthy score or a Lenddo score of 700, that actually might be even more valuable in some circumstances than their credit score.
Well, we're very focused on empowering the emerging market middle class. So that's we're a small company. We're 40
Smart.
people.
He's
so
almost 40.
Stay focused. But we're
challenging him, but he keeps going back to it.
Yeah. One of the things though that is happening globally is we're moving to sort of this collaborative consumption model, where things like Airbnb or Zipcar, where you share things, and that even old-fashioned carpooling, those types of transactions are different than I'm going to do business with you, and if American Express says you'll pay, we're good. If you're sharing a car ride with somebody, you want to know that they're trustworthy, that you're not bringing in a stranger into your car, or into your house.
Yeah.
So trustworthiness will become a global problem beyond just borrowing or financial transactions, and that will get solved. But I think the community is the answer there. But we're staying very focused right now on empowering the emerging market.
And I think LinkedIn has done a pretty good job at trustworthiness and taking everything to the next level, because it's sort of the same thing. How many people they connected to, how many fellow connections do they have? Let's take off the veil for a second, and to me, this was more of the marketing conversation, sort of how you built it up and what you guys do. As entrepreneurs, as passionate people, as educators wanting to change, it's lots of challenges all the time, and a lot of companies, you're breaking into a very, I don't know if it's a competitive market, but it's certainly, when you're dealing with financial lending and institutions in emerging markets, is there some challenges that you can share with us to show the passion that you've had to sort of make this happen?
Well, I think working in the emerging markets is really exciting. I'll fly into a place like China and get to my hotel room at midnight. There's a skyscraper across the street, lights on, concrete being poured, hammering.
Yeah.
I go to bed, wake up at 6 a.m., still hammering. I'll leave. I'll come back a couple months later. The building's done, occupied. The empty lot next to it is now another skyscraper. It's just the growth that's going on is incredible, and it's easy to sitting in New York or sitting in California or sitting in the U.S. It's easy to lose track of just the incredible energy that is happening in places like Mexico and Indonesia and the Philippines and Colombia. So I think that's one thing that has excited us again and again. Challenge.
He doesn't. You're good. You're good. No, but that's sort of, we learn from challenges. Like it's very. This is not easy what you're doing. So every day you must have something where you're like, why am I doing this?
So I think probably the biggest challenge that we face every day is the fact that we're a multinational company. We have people in the Philippines, we have people in New York, and we have people in Colombia, right? So there are very few startups that are multinational, right? Startups, by their very nature, work best when people are in front of each other. There's frequent communication with one office, right? Now imagine that we are a little startup, but some of us are in the Philippines, not just half the world away, but also 12 hours away, right? So now decisions that would be easier become more difficult. Miscommunication has to be, you have to over-communicate to protect against miscommunication. So, that I think is one of our biggest challenges as a company, decision making, more effective communication.
What about determining if that you're lending to the right people? Like, has that been a challenge? Has it been a challenge dealing with fraud? Has it been, do you see that as a potential challenge? Building the sites not working the right way, you're lending to the wrong people, dealing with people who haven't lended money back, just certain things like that sort of creep up on you.
I think the technology execution. This is the world we come from, and we've surrounded ourselves with people. One of our advisors invented social networks, Andrew Weinrich.
Okay.
Started 6 Degrees.
Okay.
Some of our backers were the backers of Facebook. Some of our backers are the backers of LinkedIn. We've got a community of people who really understand this, and technologists who really understand that. I think Naveen hit the nail on the head. It's distance. The best startups are all in a room, and they go up to the whiteboard when they see something new, and we see something new every day. They go up to the whiteboard and they draw it out.
Yeah.
Well, we may go 60 days before seeing some of the other co-founders because we're on planes and moving around. We'll be 50% bigger 60 days from now. Like, that's a completely different company, but yet we haven't been in a room together in front of a whiteboard. And that's tough for a company that's growing as fast as we are.
And I can see the flip side of that is it allows you to stay more focused, because if you're in the same room, you might go on 18 different tangents because you have so many ideas. And to me, that's one of the more important things. Was it difficult to raise the $8 million in funding? I know it was at one time and you're raising money in a long period, but certainly lots of entrepreneurs, lots of startups, a lot of people passionate that can't raise money. So any things you can share from that?
Well, I think one thing that really helps is the industry is so big and the problem is so large.
Microfinancing, you're saying, or finance?
Finance for the emerging market middle class. There will be dozens of multi-billion-dollar companies created to restructure finance, and I think investors understand that we're moving from an era of sort of centralized financial services to one where the community is more empowered. I mean, you see it in media, the effect of Napster and BitTorrent changing the media landscape, or Twitter changing the media landscape, Google changing the media landscape. Well, media is much smaller than financial services. Now, media it's simpler, it's less regulated, so media changed first. But the internet, and particularly because of the things that companies like LinkedIn and Facebook are doing, connecting everybody, and mobile, it's going to completely change. I was talking to a head innovation officer for a top 5 bank, one of the banks that really gets it, and he said to the CEO of the bank, mobile and social is going to completely change financial services. And the head of the bank said, you've been spending too much time in Silicon Valley. Called back a couple weeks later, he said, you're right, it's going to change everything. And so there's a few people in traditional financial services that get it, but there's 600 to 900,000 Android smartphones being activated, internet-enabled, a day. You're going to have more in your pocket right now. I bet you have more computing power than the Citibank branch on 110 Wall Street in 1985.
Yeah, certainly that is definitely the exponential growth of technology and computing power is definitely a game changer in terms of connecting people.
And in your hands.
So in terms of raising investment, the sheer potential of it makes it easy. For investors that get it, they really get it.
And then I think obviously one big part of that is exactly to what your business is both your reputations. When you raise money, it's easier to raise money. Not easier, but certainly you have more likelihood when you have a past track record. So it's almost similar to what you're doing. A lot of entrepreneurs, you have to go just to Flatiron in New York City, thousands and thousands of tech startups who don't have that track record, but maybe they do have they can have a Lenddo score to help them their own type of, and obviously because I don't know the Philippines, I can just relate to all the people I know who are trying to get their own type of money and they can't get it from banks right now because they don't have the credit history. We have like 2 minutes left.
Well, I would just point out that much more important than access to capital is access to great talent. And I think that's where this business has just been in a bigger order of magnitude than anything I've ever been involved in as an investor or as an observer or any company. We're able to attract top talent from all over the planet. We have a senior executive from Google who ran part of South America who's now on our team.
It's got to be inspiring.
We have a top mathematician who is at a hedge fund who's like, what you're doing is more interesting and more important, and has joined us. Our head of corporate development was a executive at Goldman Sachs and at AIG. Is like, this is going to change the world. I want to be working with you guys. We're able to pull in just incredible talent. And when you have a small team that's passionate like that, you can really make a difference. So big ideas that are positive attract great people, and that's more important than great people. You always attract capital when you have great people.
I'm looking forward to keeping track now. That's what I love about doing the show, is I learn about great companies, great entrepreneurs, and clearly you guys have a proven track record, which is the best. You look to past success to future success in anything in life. So exactly what you have your own social capital, and you're sort of building that to emerging markets. So thank you very much for coming on today. Thank you, Jeff. Thank you, Naveen. And hope to see you soon. And once again, thank you for watching Further Ed.
You've been watching Further Ed with your host, David Schnurman. Mr. Schnurman will be back with you next week at the same time. If you have any questions about this program, please send an email to info@furthered.com.